My name is Greg Bjornstad, and welcome to another installment of my video tutorial series for eVit, my Vineyard database software program. Today I'm going to show you the overall functions, an overview of eVit, as we run through the main 4 levels of hierarchy and touch on some of the data categories. So by hierarchy, I mean those 4 items, those 4 areas in this bar here: growers, vineyards, blocks, and subblocks. And I refer to the data categories as contracts, crop estimates, harvest summaries, inputs, maturity sampling, observations, petiole analyses, phenology, and soil analyses. So let's get started with growers, and then we'll drill down. I'm going to take you through each of the layouts. So we'll get started here. When we click on one of these entities, we have a drop-down menu that appears. And so if I know exactly what I'm looking for, I can click in this field here and then click the search button. I could also just go right into see the list view of growers, and or go right into the detail screen. So and then adding a new grower here at the bottom. So this screen, these options here are the same for all 4 of these entities. They're a little bit different for the data categories. So let's get started with the list and click into there. And here we see a list of the growers, their contact address, and the main contact there. So I'm going to click on Jones Family Vineyards, and this will take us down into the grower details. And so I think I'm not going to talk too much about options today. There's a lot of things in there that probably deserve more detailed explanation. So right now let's just look at the details here on the screen. As you can see, there are 4 tabs: address, contacts, vineyards, and contracts. And so on this address, this is kind of where we would find the business associated with the grower. Mailing address, we can click on the email icon here and launch our email client and write an email. We also have the information here for the contacts that we can see further expounded on over here. We've chosen John Jones as the primary contact, and there is his information listed there along with other contacts who are associated with this grower. We can drill down into those. I guess we can do that real quick and see the information that's available for contact details. So we've got his title, email, the grower, and if there's anything particular, this is more important as we down at the vineyard layer, if we have a contact that is associated with one vineyard but not another. And so here are the phone numbers and the mailing address, and if this owner moves on, let's say a vineyard manager moves on from one company to the next, we can reassign that contact to the next place of employment. So that's a nice feature we've got there. So I'll close out of here, and then I'm going to skip over vineyards. We'll come back to that in a moment. And then into, and here we can add a new contact if we'd like. So contracts is shows all of the contracts that are associated with this grower. And at a glance, I wanted to be able to see some of the highlights of the information that were obvious. Expired there in red is something that jumps out right away, so you know that this one is not a current contract. By deduction, this one is. We also have S's and V's over here. The way we are doing business with grapes is that we could have a contract that is associated with the grower, so that a winery might purchase all of the grapes that are produced by that grower, or any one of the entities could be contracted for. There could be one subblock, specifically the rows 1 through 10, that Jones happens to farm at the Jones Home Ranch within Block 1. So this tells you at what level this contract is attached. At a glance, we can see the pricing and payment dates, contract terms, and this over here shows us that if we have any files attached. So this could be the Word document that is actually the contract itself, or it could be a scanned-in PDF of the signed contract. And so it's handy to have this associated with the data. There's been times when I've been out in the field and I couldn't remember if we started row 1 at the road or if we started row 1 at the creek. And oftentimes that information is found in the contract, so that helps us in the field when we're probably not toting around our contract binder. So that's a very helpful thing to have in my experience. So now I'm going to go back to vineyards, and we're going to see the list of vineyards that are associated with the Jones Family Vineyard grower. And here we've got the first one, Jones Apple Valley, Jones Home Ranch, and the primary contacts and their contact numbers. If the Jones Family Vineyards purchased another new vineyard, we could add that here. So I'm going to continue to drill down through the levels of the hierarchy by clicking on the Jones Home Ranch here. And you're going to see that we go from grower details to vineyard details. And so here we have a number of tabs again that are associated with at the vineyard detail of information here. So we've got the address and the contacts again. We could click in there and that will be very much like what we saw in at the grower level. I'm going to skip over blocks for now. We'll come back to that in a moment and drill down further in the same way we got to here. So contracts are contracts that are associated with this vineyard or any of its children entities, blocks or subblocks beneath it. So you can see that the second contract is not here because it was pertaining to the Apple Valley Vineyard, not the home ranch. So we start to lose that, not lose, we're kind of filtering the data actually to be more specific to the entities that we're looking at. And again we have the expired, the entity at the level that the contract is attached, pricing, terms, and the attached files again. So Inputs is a new tab that I've had installed here. It is replacing pesticide use because I've made pesticide use much broader. So as you can see, we can be adding water or fertilizer, frost protection. This could even be configured at the user level to track minor accounting information. So at a glance, you can see again your entity icons where this record is attached at the subblock level in this case, or B at the block level, V at the vineyard. The date that the record could be made, but not necessarily. It's the record, the date of the application itself of 5 gallons of water. This was in the form of a work request, and we can see that it was completed on the same day. So this is a little feature that I have built in to help with operations to try to keep track of work requests and work orders at a certainly not a robust level, but certainly can help keep track of things. And this would be the text of the input itself, any notes. Moving on to maps. All this is alphabetical here, by the way. So here we can click on this thumbnail over here, and this will pull up the scanned-in PDF that we have of the home ranch. And this is just something I took off of Google Maps. You can make your notes on here. So now we can make it larger or smaller according to the operating system that you have running. And we can also view Google Maps. And so let me just duck back over here to the address. This address that's plugged in here, 11,300 Drayton Road, is actually driving this function right here. So this takes us to 11,300 Drayton Road, and this is a Google map. And so we can select the map types if we want terrain, satellite, hybrid, etc. And zooming in and zooming out is an option as well. So that's a nice feature. We can also add, this will open up the your your file manager to help you find the map that you want to scan in. All right, so let's go over here to observations. And again, we've got the entity icons here. At a glance, you can see the date, who made the observation, and what category it's associated with. And these are the notes there itself. Files, in this case over here, represent that something is attached. A picture, a video, a signature, or voicemail, anything that you could add from the native iOS features that are there. Okay, that takes us through the Vineyard details. I'm going to go back here to the blocks tab, and we see blocks 1 and 2 at a glance. We see the varieties that are planted within block 1, and there's more than one here because it indicates that we have more than one subblock that is planted to Pinot and the other Chardonnay, the different clones, and the different pruning systems. And there is also a sum of the acres. Here's also something very important, is the gate code. So many times I've gone to the field and been out of touch and wasn't able to get the gate code. It got changed, or I lost it, or whatnot. And here you've got it all together in one place. With the iOS devices, we actually have Google Maps built in. I think we also have Apple Maps as well to get directions, so that interns who are on for a short time can pretty easily get to their places where they need to go. So that's a nice help. All right, so onward, I'm going to click on block 1 where I have more details, and we're going to go into the block details layout here. And there are 3 tabs: block info, subblocks, inputs, and observations. And this is what I consider to be the birth certificate of a Vineyard entity. It shows the variety. Oh, that's a good reminder that these 4 fields here, variety, clone, rootstock, and pruning, are defined at the subblock level. So that's where these things are identified, and so what's happening here in these fields on the block details is the summary of what else is planted to the subblocks. Here, however, is this kind of, it usually applies that that if you've got an irrigation system, it would apply to all subblocks underneath there. And so this is a pull-down user-defined list that you can create your own entities. And what else do I say here? So you can use what I've given you, or you can use your own stuff. So that, I think, is pretty handy. Row orientation is same that way. Solar aspects, the kind of trellis systems that you're using, appellations, if you've got frost protection and what kind, the percent slope of the property. Soil is not a pull down, nor is percent slope, because you can just tap in there. Those there's so many options, it doesn't make sense. So vine spacing, you can use what I've got here, or you can add your own. The associated vines per acre is there connected with it, and the year that the vines were planted and budded. If it's bench grass, then you wouldn't use budded, just use the same year. So that's what we have for block info. I'm going to skip subblocks and shoot over here to inputs. And this is, again, the same kind of thing that we saw earlier with the entity indicators, the dates. And now this is, we're getting more and more specific. So we won't see anything that pertains to block 2 with regard to inputs, or anything that pertains to the Apple Valley Vineyard. It's all specific to this particular family tree of grower, vineyard, and block. Same goes for observations over here. The list is narrowing, and with the same functionality, showing what the files that we've got as well. So now I'm going to come over here to subblocks, and this is going to show the list of subblocks that are associated with this block. We've got the clone, the pruning system, the vines per subblock, and the acres of that subblock. Now you can see that I've got 3 plus 4 plus 1 makes 8. That does not add up to 2.25 over here. So this number is a hard input number. It's not necessarily the sum of the subblocks, which can have its advantages in some cases. We thought that was the best way to go. All right, so I'm going to continue to drill down and get through the last of the 4 entities and select rows 1 through 10 where I have a lot of demo data. And we have, I'm going to stretch that screen out a little bit more. So we've got the subblock details here, and now a bunch of data category tabs. So starting over here, we further the birth certificate with clones and varieties. One thing that I was happy to make happen here is that when you've chosen Pinot Noir, for example, you won't get Cabernet or Chardonnay clones in here. They are all specific to Pinot. Same goes for any other variety that you would select over here as well. So I guess that would make the clone a child table of the variety. So you've got a relational integrity there. Rootstocks are a pull-down list, as are the pruning systems. So you can populate your list with what you want in there as well. This is a calculation, the vines per subblock, based on the number of acres and the spacing that was utilized in the block details layout, the previous one. Here's a place where you can make comments that continue on with this subblock, and the list of other subblocks that are associated with block 1. All right, so now the first data category, really, as it were, is crop estimates. And at a glance, let's see where I've got some data. There are 2 kinds of crop estimates. The one that we've got here is complex data, which is what you would use to, if you were out there counting vines and counting clusters and weighing clusters, the date that you're taking it, the stages are pull down value list, and you can define those for yourself. You can even have final and anything that you want that works for you. Calculations are built in here to give you the calculations. We're taking the vines per acre from the spacing again, and the acres that we've plugged in for the subblock. There's a fudge factor. If you think that your stand is uniform, you would use 1. If you have 50% replants, you would make this fudge factor 0.5, and this would give you your expected tons. And then we can, let's go in the chart, and then we see what we get for graphing. And so we get clusters per vine, cluster weights, pounds per vine, tons per acre, and total expected tons. The simple is much more straightforward. This is what a winery might use if it were to get a phone call from a grower. They would just simply plug that data in and see it chart that way. Okay, so harvest summaries. This is a accumulation over time of data, so you can see at a glance what this block has performed at. One of the really cool things I like about this graphing, well, let me take a step back about graphing. I have had decades of poring over Excel spreadsheets and columns, and my eyes are crossing with so many numbers. So I really appreciate being able to see the information graphically represented, because I really believe that it's a picture tells 1,000 words about what's really there. So to further that, you can see that we have primary chemistry associated with tonnage and production numbers. If I wanted to really just kind of focus in on chemistry, I could eliminate these 2 items from the legend and focus on the primary chemistry. The effect is to give me a more elaborate graph, and so I can kind of see more of the changes, especially what's going on here with bricks. And then hover over each one of these points and get the vintage, the data that was there, and the actual number on it. Let's see, to make this TA even more less than flat, if I took off pH, I would get a little bit more expression on that graph. So that's a cool function that is available on the graphing throughout the program, and even in fact on the iPhone. When you turn your iPhone from portrait to landscape, it automatically draws this graph for you, which is really cool. Okay, now we're going to go into inputs, and this is what the what it looks like here. At the we've got the list level again. I'll click on one here, and we can go right into one and see what's involved. The date, the applicator, whether this was a work request or any other category. Again, it's user defined. Same with the material applied. You can load that up with your materials, and if the work was not complete, then that goes away. If it was, then we keep it there. Here's where you would write your notes, and here's where you could upload a PDF. Let's say you've got an MSDS safety hazard sheet. Maybe you've got handwritten instructions. Anything like that would you would go through over here to add the PDF, the image, or anything else. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here and click on this subblock rows 1 through 10. This acts as a hyperlink, so it takes us back to that layer, that layout again. So here we were at inputs, now maturity sampling, and W data for 2014. I'm selecting my my vintage selector over here, so I can see one vintage at a time when we're looking at one kind of seasonal characteristic. For the harvest, obviously, we want the history all to show together. But we've got bricks. If you've got the Anton Par, maybe you've got a different bricks measurement or refract. This is a way to do that. So this is the sampling chart, and if we were to click on the cluster weight, we would also be able to see what was happening if you were to take cluster maturity samples. So you would count your clusters in your bag, you weigh the whole bag, it does a calculation for the cluster weights. Some folks are looking at percent brown seeds. So that's where this graph is generated from. Okay, moving on to observations. We have, looks much like the previous ones that I was showing you. We also, in inputs, clicking on one of these also, though, shows a new feature here. So if I were to be making an observation in the field, I could use Google Maps to drop the pin, and it would bring up these coordinates and drop them into this record. And so from here we can click on Show Pin. I don't think I'm going to do that right now to just keep things simple. But it would open up Google Maps, and it would show you, take you to where that was taken. The kind of observation it is, the categories here, and it looks like we have a picture scanned in. So chances are really good that I was at a trade show and made this image while I was there. So that is very helpful. You can also show this pin while you're in the field on your iOS device, and it will show you as the blue dot and help you walk right to that coordinate. So if you've got a broken irrigation line, or maybe you've seen a symptom of red blotch, you want somebody else to go and take a look at it, this is very useful for that kind of information. All right, so keeping on with the overview, I don't want to get too bogged down in details. I need more videos to go into those specifics. Let's look at petiole analyses. So this is strictly from my perspective about what has been important in my consulting and my career as a viticulturist, is watching the major cations of potassium, calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium, and the ratios to magnesium. So this is probably where I spend 90% of my nutritional stuff, certainly have been. So this could be built out in the future, but for right now it seems like it's done most of the work that we need. We can look at the ratios and see how they are working with each other and follow their targets, and again, at a glance, see where we're at and the effect that we have over time. All right, so phenology is the next one, and I'm pretty proud of this one. It's built on the industry standard of the 50% number. So here we see the data that is driving the graphs, and anything that is not a 50% number will not be graphed. So if you missed your input here of a 50% number, that won't graph either. So here is a view dates of stages, and so this is going to show us, clicking the hover tip over here is going to show us the dates that each one of these phenology stages occurred. And so at a glance, again, we can see that 2015 was later harvest than the others, that 17 here was early, and etc. It's very useful to kind of help you get spot trends in your vineyards and help you with predicting phenology stages, especially harvest dates. So the number of days is a calculation based on the number of days between each one of those stages. So clicking again on the hover tooltip, we get dates. So in 2014, with the black diamond here, we've had 97 days between 50% bloom and 50% veraison. So this can be very helpful in helping you to, again, spot trends in your vineyard subblocks. Okay, the last one here we have is soil analyses, and this is mostly a placeholder for data. It seems like it's one of those things that we use early on quite a lot, and then we kind of forget about. But it is handy to go back and look and see what you had, for example, what your native magnesium was 10 years ago, and that you can scan this right into your file is very useful because it's got all the, oops, I guess I hadn't uploaded this yet, but so this is where you would keep the actual lab report. So 0 files there, yeah, so I need to upload that one. So it's a place to know, to keep it and know where you got it. You can go to look for it when you need to find something. So here we are, we've made it through the 4 levels of the hierarchy and all 9 data categories. I'm going to go back to the main menu and show you one more thing, and that's up here in the options button. Syncing is a very important feature. We finally got that built in, and so this is very useful if you're out in the vineyard and don't have internet connectivity. All of this information is available to you on your iOS device as a local copy. And then you can work, you can add records, you can reference your information you have here, and then when you're back in connectivity range, you can hit this button and you're synced. The hosted file and your local file are the same again, so if you're the only one using that, that's great. If you've got other people who are using it together, then everybody has the most recent copy at one time. So there it is, eVit in a nutshell, and I kind of ran right through all that. Stay tuned for more videos as I break down more of the details and kind of show more of the functionality that's available, but I think that's a pretty good overview. So thanks for watching, and please reach out if you have any more questions or comments about eVit, pricing, demos. I'd be happy to meet with you or talk with you about how and if eVit is a good match for you and your team. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.